Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you. It's good to be with you today. I want to thank our hosts, the Jewish Federations of North America and the Conference of Presidents. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time in the middle of a busy day. Our time today is short, so I'd like to get right to the point. I want to talk with you about 3 fatal flaws in the nuclear deal with Iran. And I also want to dispel some of the misinformation, and regrettably I have to say, the disinformation about the deal and about Israel's position. I want to answer some of your important questions. The most important point I have to make today is this. The nuclear deal with Iran doesn't block Iran's path to the bomb. It actually paves Iran's path to the bomb. Worse, it gives Iran 2 paths to the bomb. Iran can get to the bomb by keeping the deal, or Iran could get to the bomb by violating the deal. First, let's understand how Iran gets to the bomb by keeping the deal. See, the deal allows Iran to maintain and eventually expand a vast and increasingly sophisticated nuclear infrastructure. This infrastructure is unnecessary for civilian nuclear energy, but it's entirely necessary for nuclear weapons. Astonishingly, the deal gives Iran's illicit nuclear program full international legitimacy. If Iran keeps the deal, in a decade or so, at most 15 years, the main restrictions on this vast nuclear program will expire. They'll just end. The deal's limitations on the number of centrifuges Iran has and on the quantity of uranium Iran enriches, those restrictions will be lifted. And at that point, Iran will be able to produce the enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. And it could produce that arsenal very quickly. After 15 years, Iran's breakout time will be practically 0, just a few days. I think President Obama said as much in an interview with NPR. By keeping the deal, Iran will become a threshold nuclear weapons power. The deal does make it harder for Iran to produce 1 or 2 nuclear weapons in the short term, but it does so at a terrible price, because the deal makes it far easier for Iran to build dozens, even hundreds of nuclear weapons in a little over a decade. Now, 10 to 15 years pass in no time. I think it was like yesterday, and I remember this very well, all those preparations for the Y2K bug and the celebrations of the new millennium. That was 15 years ago. It's a blink of an eye. We're told that this deal buys us time, but 10 to 15 years is no time at all. So by keeping the deal, Iran can get within a decade or so, not just to 1 bomb, but to many bombs. But Iran has a second path to the bomb, one that would give it a nuclear weapon in far less time. You see, Iran could violate the deal. And there's good reason to think that Iran will do so, that it will cheat. They've done it before. They'll do it again. Now, people don't really contest that. But they argue that Iran will be prevented from cheating because we'll have good intelligence and unprecedented inspections. Well, let me start with intelligence. I have the greatest respect for Israel's intelligence capabilities. I have the greatest respect for the intelligence services of the United States and Great Britain. But it has to be said honestly. For years, none of us discovered the massive underground nuclear facilities Iran was building at Fordow and at Natanz. For years, none of us discovered that the Syrians were building a nuclear reactor for plutonium production. So I can tell you from experience, it's very precarious to bet the deal's success on intelligence. Now, what about inspections? Neither intelligence nor inspections prevented North Korea from building atomic bombs, despite assurances that they wouldn't be able to do so. And while the deal with Iran allows for ongoing inspections of Iran's declared sites, what about Iran's secret nuclear activities? See, if a facility under the deal, if a facility is suspected of housing hidden nuclear activity, inspectors must wait at least 24 days. That's 24 days before getting access to those suspected sites. Not only that, the inspectors must first share with Iran the critical intelligence that led them to suspect the sites in the first place. That's actually astounding. Some have said that 24 days is not long enough to conceal evidence of illicit nuclear activity. But as leading experts have pointed out, 24 days is more than enough time to clean up a site of all traces of illicit activity. It's like the police giving a drug dealer 3.5 weeks notice before raiding his lab. Believe me, you can flush a lot of nuclear meth down the toilet in 24 days. I've heard the claim that the deal blocks Iran's covert path to the bomb. But no matter how good your intelligence is, no one can credibly make such a claim. How can you block what you don't know? So Iran can keep the deal, or Iran can cheat on the deal. Either way, the deal gives Iran a clear path to the bomb, a difficult path to 1 or 2 bombs today, and a much easier path to hundreds of bombs tomorrow. Now, here's the thing. Everybody in the Middle East knows what I've just said. And the countries in the region threatened by Iran have already made clear that they will work to develop atomic bombs of their own. So the deal that was supposed to end nuclear proliferation will actually trigger nuclear proliferation. It will trigger an arms race, a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, the most volatile part of the planet. That's a real nightmare. But the deal's dangers don't end there. See, the deal gives Iran also a massive infusion of cash. And Iran will use this cash to fund its aggression in the region and its terrorism around the world. As a result of this deal, there'll be more terrorism, there'll be more attacks, and more people will die. It's been said that most of the money that Iran will get will not go to Iran's terrorism and aggression. Well, let's suppose that's true. Let's suppose that Iran just takes 10% of the money for terrorism. That's 10% of nearly $500 billion that Iran is expected to receive over the next 10 to 15 years. That's a staggering amount of money. And that would turn any terrorist group sponsored by Iran into a terrorist superpower. So for all these reasons, Iran's 2 paths to the bomb and the cash jackpot Iran stands to receive, for all these reasons, this is a very dangerous deal, and it threatens all of us. My solemn responsibility as Prime Minister is to make sure that Israel's concerns are heard. It wasn't long ago, certainly not that long ago, that the Jewish people were either incapable or unwilling to speak out in the face of mortal threats. And this had devastating consequences. I've been very clear. The days when the Jewish people could not or would not speak up for themselves, those days are over. Today we can speak out. Today we must speak out. And we must do so together. Here in Israel, Isaac Herzog, the leader of the labor opposition, the man who ran against me in this year's election, and who works every day in the Knesset to bring down my government, Herzog has said that there is no daylight between us when it comes to the deal with Iran. This is simply not a partisan issue in Israel. Sure, some people disagree, but overwhelmingly, across the political spectrum, a huge majority of Israelis oppose this deal. So this is not a partisan issue in Israel. It shouldn't be a partisan issue in the United States either. Nor is it a personal issue. This isn't about me, and it's not about President Obama. It's about the deal. I'm asking you to rise above partisan politics as we in Israel have risen above it. Judge the deal on its substance, and on its substance alone. The more people know about the deal, the more they oppose it. And the more people know about the deal, the more the deal's supporters try to stifle serious debate. They do so with false claims and efforts to delegitimize criticism. Yet there's one claim that is the most outrageous, that those who oppose this deal want war. That's utterly false. We in Israel don't want war. We want peace. Because it's we who are on the front lines. We face Iran's terror on 3 borders. We face tens of thousands of Iranian rockets aimed at all our cities. We face Iran, whose regime repeatedly calls for the destruction of the Jewish state. We face Iran, whose terrorist proxies try to kill Jews every day. We know that Iran is not only the leading state sponsor of terrorism, it's also the leading state sponsor of anti-Semitism. Israelis are going to be the ones who pay the highest price if there's war and if Iran gets the bomb. The claim that we oppose this deal because we want war is not just false, it's outrageous. Israel wants to dismantle Iran's nuclear program, and Israel wants peace. This deal would advance neither goal. I don't oppose this deal because I want war. I oppose this deal because I want to prevent war. And this deal will bring war. It will spark a nuclear arms race in the region, and it would feed Iran's terrorism and aggression. That would make war, perhaps the most horrific war of all, far more likely. Don't let the deal supporters quash a real debate. The issue here is too important. Don't let them take your voice away at this critical moment in history. What we do now will affect our lives and the lives of our children and grandchildren in Israel, in America, everywhere. This is a time to stand up and be counted. Oppose this dangerous deal. Thank you.
What would have been needed to be in the current deal for Israel to have endorsed it as a viable plan to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon?
Well, I think that I offered 2 alternatives and supported 2 different alternatives. The first alternative is to dismantle the sanctions in exchange for dismantling Iran's nuclear program. That was, in fact, the U.S. position until the interim agreement in 2003. It was supported on a bipartisan basis. But once the U.S. backed off this position, I offered another alternative. Not full dismantling, but significantly rolling back Iran's nuclear program and linking the lifting of restrictions on that program to a change in Iran's behavior. That is, to have them stop their terrorism and their regional aggression. And I outlined that alternative in a speech before the U.S. Congress. So it's simply wrong to say that I offered no alternatives and that I wouldn't accept any deal. We'd accept a good deal. This is not a good deal. Now, I want to take this opportunity to dispel a number of false claims about Israel's position and about the deal. First and foremost is the claim that the only alternative to this deal is war. That's kind of funny. Just a few weeks ago, we were being told that the alternative to a bad deal is no deal. Now we're being told that the alternative to a bad deal is war. What's changed in the interim? The answer is nothing. The alternative to this bad deal is still no deal or a better deal, one which would roll back Iran's nuclear program and link the lifting of restrictions on that program to a cessation of Iran's aggression and its terrorism. The claim that I wouldn't accept any deal and that I haven't proposed any alternative is simply not true.
From Boynton Beach, Florida. If the U.S. Congress rejects this agreement, what are the alternatives to prevent Iran from achieving the nuclear weapons capability?
Well, I think I've just answered that. I think that the most important thing is to maintain the pressure. Not merely to maintain the sanctions, but actually to increase the pressure. I think that has proved to be absolutely effective throughout the many times that we've had to deal with Iran. Iran wants 2 things in this deal. It wants a nuclear weapons capability, and it wants sanctions relief. The negotiations were supposed to make Iran choose between the 2. Instead, the deal gave Iran both. It let Iran keep its nuclear program, and it lifts the sanctions for them. So Iran can have its yellow cake and eat it too. There's a myth that the sanctions will collapse without this deal. Well, they won't. If the United States maintains or increases sanctions, 2 things will happen, Michael. and I think that'll happen after some initial erosion. First, the rest of the world will come around, and there's a reason for that. See, the U.S. economy is 40 times larger than Iran's economy. Iran's economy is about $400 billion, and the U.S. economy is $17 trillion economy. So if a foreign firm or a foreign government has to choose between Iran's economy and the $17 trillion U.S. economy, that's a no-brainer. So I think after some initial erosion, the international community will come around with renewed sanctions. And second, I think the Iranians will come back. See, they need a deal. They need a lot more than any of us needed. The best way to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons has not changed. Increase the sanctions, increase the pressure. Don't prematurely give away the best leverage you have.
We all realize that the disagreement regarding the deal has caused strain between the United States and its allies in the Middle East, including Israel. How do you see the United States and Israel moving forward from this agreement?
I think that the relationship between the United States and Israel is so fundamentally strong that it will continue to remain strong because it's based on something so deep. It's based on our shared values. When Americans look around the world, and especially when they look at the Middle East, you see darkness, chaos, savagery, barbarism, and you see one island there, this island of freedom and democracy, Israel. So while we may have a serious policy disagreement on this deal with Iran, I think this is so strong because it's based on our shared values, and that relationship will continue. This policy disagreement has never been personal, and our relationship is strong enough to withstand even serious disagreements as we have in the past. Look, do I believe that President Obama thinks this is the best way to address the Iranian nuclear threat? Yes, I think he does. Would I prefer not to have this agreement? Absolutely. But I wouldn't be fulfilling my responsibilities as Prime Minister if I didn't voice Israel's grave concerns about the dangers of this deal. And despite the ongoing disagreement about Iran, Israel and the United States continue to work together, continue to work closely together on a broad spectrum of issues that affect the national security of both countries. A senior U.S. defense official is quoted this week as saying, "We are allies and our cooperation will continue unrelated to this deal." I fully concur.
Although there seems to be political consensus in Israel in opposition, as you've mentioned, to the terms of the deal, there are some veteran intelligence and military leaders who have voiced their support for the agreement. What's your assessment of this difference of opinion?
Well, you know, Israel is not only a democracy, it's a Jewish democracy. That means there are a lot of opinions, and everyone is free to express them. Believe me, they do. You see, what's remarkable is not that there are some Israelis who dissent, but the overwhelming unity of opinion across the Israeli political spectrum. I represent the Israeli public. About 70% of the Israeli public agrees with me about the deal. Iran's Arab neighbors, most of them, also agree with me. Recent polls suggest that most of the American public agrees with the Israeli public. They see the anti-American and anti-Israeli rallies in Tehran. They see our flags burnt in the streets. They hear the chants of death to America, death to Israel. They see Iran's terrorist regime continue to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. I want to make it clear to you, Iran is not building these ballistic missiles, these ICBMs, to hit Israel. They already have missiles that can hit Israel everywhere. They're building these ICBMs to hit you, to hit the United States. You're the great Satan. We're just a small Satan. Iran's dictator, Ayatollah Khamenei, he just published a book in which he called again for the destruction of Israel. Not in a statement, a press release, in a book. He says in recent speeches that despite the deal, Iran's #1 enemy is still the United States of America, and that Iran's conflict with America will continue after the deal. In my years of public life, finding 70% of unity on any issue is exceedingly rare. And when that happens, when Israelis overwhelmingly agree with each other, and when Israelis and Arabs overwhelmingly agree with each other, I think people should pay attention. So here's the bottom line of everything that I've said today. Don't let the world's foremost terrorist regime get its hands on the world's most dangerous weapons. Oppose this bad deal. I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to thank you for your friendship and for your support. I say that on behalf of everyone in Israel. Thank you.